Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Fooled by Plants. Today we are going to make a favorite of mine personally, shepherd's pie. And it's pretty traditional the way that we're going to do it, except for I don't eat corn, so I'm swapping out the corn for green beans. But otherwise, this recipe is going to fool anyone into loving plants and thinking it's the original shepherd's pie. So I have everything laid out here. So we're going to get started by throwing 2 tablespoons of olive oil into our pan, along with a diced half of a small white onion. And we're going to get those onions starting to saute. And as soon as the onions are sauteed, we're going to add in 12 ounces of our favorite plant-based beef meat substitute. So I'm going to use this brand today. So as soon as these onions are sauteed, I'm going to go ahead and throw in this plant-based meat replacement. All right, now that our onions are starting to come together, starting to become a little translucent and fully sauteed, let's go ahead and add in our plant-based meat mixture and start incorporating that with the onions and getting it broken up. So now that we have our plant-based meat started breaking up and starting to cook with the onions and starting to brown, we're going to add some of our spices. So I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of parsley, 1 teaspoon of rosemary, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we're going to get those all mixed in with the meat while it finishes browning. Now that our plant-based meat is almost completely brown, we are going to add in 2 cloves of garlic that have been diced and 1 tablespoon of vegan Worcestershire sauce. And we're going to get that stirred in. And now that everything is completely incorporated, we can start adding the rest of our ingredients. This is 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And we're going to stir that in with the meat and get it all incorporated. Perfect. Now we're going to go and throw in 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour and 1 cup of vegetable broth. I made my vegetable broth today by using my favorite vegetable bouillon and a cup of water. But you can use whatever kind of vegetable broth that you like to use. And to that, we're going to add in our 10 ounces of frozen peas and carrots. And this is where you could either add in traditionally 10 ounces of frozen corn. I don't do corn, so I'm going to substitute that with 10 ounces of cut green beans, frozen. And we're going to give that a stir. We just want the gravy to thicken up a little bit. We want those vegetables to incorporate with the mixture. And as you can see, this has come together very quickly and it looks amazing already. Now, it looks a little thick, but that's okay because remember, those vegetables are frozen. So as they cook, they're going to release some liquid and that will make this a little thinner. But for the shepherd's pie, you don't want the base to be too runny or else it won't hold together on your plate. So I'm going to put this on low and let it continue just to heat up a little bit. I don't want it to cook too much more, because we are going to now talk about the mashed potatoes. So I already made the mashed potatoes, and here's a recap of how I did that. I skinned about 2 to 3 pounds of potatoes, cubed them, halving the potato and then cubing them and adding them to cold water. From there, they were put on our burner, brought to a boil, and cooked for about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, they were drained and thrown into our mixing bowl. In our mixing bowl, we added to our potatoes 8 tablespoons of our favorite plant-based butter, 1/4 cup of our grated favorite plant-based Parmesan, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of white pepper, and 2/3 cup of our favorite plant-based milk. Then we threw them into our Mix-a-Lot and we blended it till it was a creamy consistency. Not too loose because you want it to be able to hold its shape when you're putting it on top of the shepherd's pie. And that's the step that we're getting to now. I'm gonna pipe my mashed potatoes on the top of my shepherd's pie. You don't have to do this, you can just put it on top and bake it, but piping it on top does make it look a little bit nicer. And I found the easiest way to get anything in a piping bag is first putting the piping bag in a glass, and then you can just literally scoop in the contents into the piping bag, like I'm doing with the mashed potatoes right here. So those are in our piping bag and ready to pipe. But we first have to go ahead and get our meat mixture into the bottom of our baking dish. So now that everything is combined, we are going to take our plant-based meat mixture and gravy and line the bottom of our baking dish. So I'm just transferring it from our cooking pan into our baking dish. While you're doing this, you want to make sure that your oven is preheated to 400 degrees. So now that we have everything into our baking dish, we can go to the next step, which is going to be piping our mashed potatoes on top. Just want to make sure that that is all level. Perfect. Now we're going to take our piping bag and our mashed potatoes, and we're going to put dollops of mashed potatoes on the top of our shepherd's pie. You'll notice that one of the benefits of piping the mashed potatoes is if you use a star tip, the mashed potatoes will have like this nice little crispy, crunchy layer to them as they're cooking. It's sort of like, I don't want to say charring, but it does brown the star portion of the mashed potatoes, and it actually does give it a much nicer flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and continue piping this, and then we'll take a look at it, and we're going to put it into a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. So after I'm done piping this, I'll throw this in the oven. We're going to recap this recipe right now, and when we come back, we'll taste test it and see if this shepherd's pie is Fooled by Plants approved. See you in a few. So here we have our shepherd's pie. And as you can see, the top of where the potatoes were piped did crisp up in a nice golden brown. So time to give it a taste and see, are we fooled by plants? Grab a little bit of the potato and a little bit of the filling. It's going to be very hot. That tastes so good. You're definitely going to want to make this on a really cold day. This is a meal that sticks with you for the whole evening. So if you like what you saw, be sure to like, share, and subscribe this video so you can help us spread the word about how easy it is to make food plant-based. Also, if you've made this recipe, why don't you drop down in our comments and tell us how it turned out for you. As always, if you want to get a downloaded copy of this recipe, go over to fooledbyplants.com where you can do so. Also, if you have an idea for a recipe or a meal idea that you would like to see made by Fooled by Plants, go ahead and send it to fooledbyplants@gmail.com. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.